Hi, hello and welcome back to F1 Challenge VB. My name is Mephisto and our journey through the history of Formula 1 continues today with the 5th round of the 1963 season, the British Grand Prix. It was held on the 20th of July, it had 26 entries, 23 of them took part in the race with 10 of them ending up retiring. The race consisted of 82 laps completed in 2 hours, 14 minutes and 9 seconds. Jim Clark started the race from pole with Gurney in 2nd, Graham Hill 3rd, Brabham 4th, Surtees 5th and McLaren started from 6th. Jim Clark dominated the race and ultimately won the British Grand Prix from Surtees, who finished 25.8 seconds after Clark. Graham Hill ended the race in 3rd, he was 37.6 seconds behind. Ginther crossed the line in 4th, he was 1 lap down. Bandini finished 5th, he was also 1 lap down. And Jim Hall rounded off the top 6 and was 2 laps adrift. The fastest lap of the race belonged to John Surtees, who did it in 1 minute and 36 seconds. Greetings from the fantastic Silverstone circuit, where a lap starts off with a long run down into turn 1, a medium speed right-hander. Watch your speed on the exit though, as it is very easy to end up on the grass. Next is Maggot, a high speed left-hander. Once again, careful not to go too wide. And as soon as you straighten out, you can already start slowing down for Beckett, a medium speed right-hander. From here we move on to Chapel, a fast left-hander that brings us onto the longest straight of the track, which leads into Stowe, a medium speed right-hander. Then, after a short sprint, we find ourselves coming through Club Corner, another medium speed right-hander. Next is the fastest corner of the track, Abbey. Be careful not to get too carried away though, as it's quite easy to go off and into the grass. Finally, we come through Woodcut, a fast right-hander, which brings us around onto the main straight, and that is a lap around the superb Silverstone circuit. And here we are in qualifying for the British Grand Prix, coming around to set our first flying lap, a 1:37.362. Not very bad, but not very good either, so let's see if we can improve on that. I would really like to try and see how fast we can actually go, and here I am coming around to set another lap, and this time it was a 1:34.819, a pretty good improvement. However, I would have liked to do even more, however that didn't really go as planned because I went wide through cops there and ended up stalling the engine, and I decided to just end the qualifying there. And here are the previous British Grand Prix winners. We haven't won a British Grand Prix since 1959, so it would be quite nice if we could do so today. Anyway, we have Jim Clark on pole with Richie Ginther in 2nd, followed by Graham Hill in 3rd, Jack Brabham 4th, Innes Ireland is 5th, and rounding off the top 6 we have Jim Hall. Joe Bonnier is sitting nicely in 7th, followed by Dan Gurney in 8th. Then we have Tony Maggs in 9th and Bruce McLaren in 10th. In 11th we have Tony September, followed by Ludovico Scarfiotti in 12th. Siffert is 13th, Phil Hill 14th. Hap Sharp is 15th, followed by Chris Amon in 16th. Maurice Trintignant is 17th, John Surtees 18th. 19th we have Lorenzo Bandini, followed by Giancarlo Baghetti in 20th. Andy Higgs is sitting in 21st. Maston Gregory is 22nd. Gerhard Mitter is 23rd. And at the very rear we have Karel Godin de Beaufort in 24th. So that was the grid lineup for the British Grand Prix. Hopefully we will do well here today, although anything could happen as we are already off. I tried to kind of get in front of a couple of cars there, but didn't really work. I then hit Giancarlo Baghetti a couple of times unintentionally. Luckily, nothing bad happened to either of us. However, there were a few cars that lost control before they even got into turn 1, and so we move up into 17th already, which is quite nice. Hopefully we can gain a couple more positions as we now follow Karel Godin de Beaufort into Maggots here. I tried to take a look at on the inside there, but there wasn't enough room, or at least I wasn't very confident. And as we come into Beckett's, so we see a couple more cars losing control, and we are now in 14th and chasing after Hap Sharp. As we take another look at the start, kind of a initially it was a good launch, but then I got boxed in there. I couldn't really get around anyone, as I kind of, boxed me in, obviously. But eventually I made the little incident there at the start kind of helped me out, so that was kind of good. And then obviously we got around a couple more cars, and here is a replay of Chris Amon losing control of his car there, the number 15, flips around a couple of times, gets hit by another car and gets flipped, and gets hit by two Ferraris. He loses his front left and he is out of the British Grand Prix. As we now take a look at Maurice Intigna, who also loses control of his car, goes way off onto the grass there, then brings the car back around, crosses the line, and then crosses the circuit, I mean, then drives into the embankment there, flips his car upside down, and he's out of the Grand Prix. I'm not quite sure why he did that. And here's a replay of Maston Gregory, who loses control of his car, hits Chris Amon, and ends up at the side of the road, and he is out of the race. As we now move on to lap 2 here, a bunch of more cars lose control, and we move up into 8th position already, so we are very, very close to the point. Hopefully we can get even closer. Well, ideally it would be nice to go into the points. As we take a look at Bruce McLaren coming into the points, apparently with a gearbox problem, so he is out. And now we have a replay of Joe Siffert coming into Beckett's here. He loses control of his car and flies up the embankment and out of the British Grand Prix. So does Jim Hall, who we're looking at right now, and here is a replay of Hap Sharp pretty much doing the same thing. Quite interesting, I would say. So he is out of the British Grand Prix as well. Actually, he's trying to not retire, but he does. As we now move on to lap 3, I go a bit wide through Beckett's there, which allows Giancarlo Baghetti to overtake me. However, looking at how quickly he pulls away, I probably wouldn't have been able to keep him behind me for much longer. As we now take a look at a replay of Tony September in the Scirocco Powell Racing. He loses control of the car and pretty much flies over the embankment there and back through Beckett's and ends up out of the race, really. As we now move on to lap 5, I'm just about to overtake Dan Gurney for 7th position. That's absolutely fantastic. Just one place below the points. Hopefully we can catch Brabham, who is just 6.2 seconds up the road, and we're slowly inching our way towards him. As we take a look at a replay of Tony Maggs coming around to finish lap 6 and post the fastest time of the race. So congratulations to Tony Maggs, done a pretty good job. Unfortunately on lap 8 he retired from the race, so his victory was kind of short-lived, I guess. As we now take a look at a replay of Lorenzo Bondini, who is coming into the pits due to a gearbox problem. Then we have Jim Clark coming onto the hangar straight. He loses control of his... Actually, that's coming in towards Beckett, loses control of his car and ends up where pretty much everyone else is. And finally here we have a look at Tony Maggs, who apparently has a problem with his suspension. He pulls to the side there and he is out of the British Grand Prix. Quite unfortunate for him. As we now move on to lap 10, we are approaching a slower car. It looks like one of the equipped Marsbergen cars. Obviously we won't have too much trouble overtaking him, hopefully at least. As we now take a look at a replay of Ludovico Scarfiotti, who loses control of his car and kind of gets stuck there. Pathfinding goes out the window and that's the end of him. As we now come up to Richie Ginster and we move up into 5th position. Quite nice indeed. And next would be Jack Brabham, and on lap 12 I get really very close to Jack Brabham and I overtake him quite easily for 4th place. That's quite nice. However, Jack Brabham is slightly faster than me on the straights and overtakes me once again. However, as we come around to finish lap 12 here through Woodcut, I once again inch my way in front of him, and this time I make sure to keep him behind my... We now move on to lap 22 and Joe Bonnier retires from the race, which means we shall move up into 3rd position. Happy days here at the British Grand Prix for Andy Higgs. And here's a replay of Richie Ginter comes out of the chapel there, loses control of his car, kind of gets tangled with one of the Ferraris. Ginter ends up at the side of the road and he is out of the race. As we now take a look at a replay of Joe Bonnier, who crashes into the Silverstone sign right there and then tries to drive up the embankment. Obviously that's not really going to work out for him. As we now move on to lap 24 and Giancarlo Baghetti is out of the race, which means we move up into second position. Very happy about that. Hopefully we won't crash out of the race. As we take a look at a replay of John Surtees, who apparently had a problem with his suspension. He ends up at the side of the road and out of the British Grand Prix. And here is a replay of Giancarlo Baghetti, who apparently has a problem with his gearbox. However, he pulls to the side, and that's the end of the race. As we now try to move on, still lap 24. There are only a few laps remaining and Phil Hill is almost a minute up the road, so I'm pretty sure we will not be able to catch him. There's just not enough laps left in the race. As we now move on to lap 28 here, and Phil Hill crosses the line to finish the race and take the win here at the British Grand Prix. And here is a replay as we see him crossing the line to take the victory. Congratulations to Phil Hill. This is his second victory of the season, which means he will move into the lead. As we now come around to finish the lap 28 ourselves and take second position here at the British Grand Prix. Quite pleasing result here for Andy and Lotus. Brabham finishes in third, Gurney fourth, Graham Hill fifth, and Lorenzo Bandini, I believe, was in sixth. As we now take a look at the retirements, quite a few people retired. Only 7 people actually finished the race, so could have been better, but could have been worse as well. Overall, that was a pretty good race for Andy. Again, I would have liked to win the British Grand Prix, but it wasn't meant to be today. Phil Hill was just way too fast for our little Lotus to catch up. But anyway, here are the career statistics, and this was Andy's 116th Grand Prix. His best start is from first, has 8 pole positions, has set 17 fastest laps. His best finishes in first, has completed 75 races, 59 of them in the points, has won 35 Grand Prix, 4 at the Indianapolis 500, 6 in Monaco, has 7 championships under his belt, has scored a total of 400 points, has retired 41 times, has experienced 2,515 out of 3,123 laps, has 6 bronze trophies, 11 silver trophies, 35 gold trophies, and as an extension, 35 podiums. And here is a look at the championship standings. Phil Hill takes the lead in the championship. Andy Higgs and Dan Gurney sharing second, Surtees and Bonnier sharing fourth, Brabham in sixth. The last person to score points is Maurice Trintignant in 14th, and bringing up the bottom of the standings is Hap Sharp down in 24th. So those are the driver standings. Quite an interesting season thus far, but Phil Hill takes the lead. Hopefully Andy Higgs will do a little bit better, maybe even win a couple of races. I don't know. The season is still quite long. But anyway, let's move on to the constructors next, and we have Automobili Turismo Esport taking the lead in the Constructors Championship with Brabham Racing in second, Team Lotus unfortunately only on third, Ferrari and RRC Walker Racing Team fighting for fourth, Owen Racing are sixth. The last team to score points are Rec Parnell Racing down in 11th, and at the very bottom of the constructor standings we have Scirocco Powell Racing. So that was the British Grand Prix. Quite a good result for Andy once again. I really hope that we do manage to win at least one race this season. That would be absolutely fantastic. Obviously the best outcome of the season would be to win the championship, although it looks kind of difficult to put it mildly. Anyway, our next race is the German Grand Prix at the Nordschleife, which is going to be a very, very interesting race, especially given that the Lotus is very difficult to control. Well, as I said at the very beginning of the season, all cars in this season are very difficult to control. So it will make for a very interesting German Grand Prix. I will be quite surprised if Andy even finishes the race. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the British Grand Prix and for this video. Once again, Andy did pretty well today to finish second. 6 points is always nice. 9 would have been even better, but not today, unfortunately. Maybe if Phil Hill would have returned, that could have happened, but Phil Hill did actually finish, so not much to do about that. So with all that said, don't forget to vote for next season's team, link is in the description. I also have a second channel where I will be playing all sorts of different games. At the moment I'm doing a playthrough of Homefront and the Red Solstice, so if you're interested in any of those 2 games, there will be a link in the description to my second channel as well. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, thank you all so much for watching, and as always, stay sharp!